It's an adventurous day in Scottish politics today, as Humza officially resigned and John Swinney became the First Minister, unappointed, unopposed, a coronation, a retreat to the early days of this century, a repetition. The Lib Dem said in the Scottish Parliament, it's that time of year again, because it's barely 12 months since Humza himself was appointed as First Minister, the third in a row. Not as bad as the series of appointed Prime Ministers in Westminster, but it's getting on for that. A party which is clinging on to power and changing its leaders, and therefore the leaders of the country, in some sort of revolving door of inanity. Who is the next in line? And entertainingly, John Swinney had to sit while members of the Scottish Parliament quoted him back in the chamber to stress that his appointment really was borders on hypocritical in being foisted onto the chamber. It's a Conservative, Douglas Ross talked about the old joke about giving a busy man more to do seems relevant at the moment. And absolutely, it's a sorry state for the SNP, and it doesn't presage any sort of advance to find somebody who had been the leader before. But then, of course, if you go back to ancient Rome, that surely was the story of Marius. But then Marius ended up in his 8th consulate, mad and raining a tyrannous murder down on anybody who contradicted him. That's the problem with bringing back people from retirement or semi-retirement. Boris Johnson would, of course, like to be seen in terms of Cincinnatus. I think Boris Johnson should check up the story of Marius, and so should Swinney. Marius came back from retirement into power, and it was a disaster. The idea of a political renaissance, a political rebirth, is not necessarily a positive experience. And a political rebirth by an unopposed coronation of somebody who is not a king, of somebody who is simply a functionary who's been sitting on the backbenches. In the case of Boris, he's not even in power. He's not even in Parliament. But the question of David Cameron comes up, doesn't it? These has-beens coming back. Theresa May. The job of somebody who has been in Parliament, in the top job, we should have it written into our system that they should be encouraged, forced to exit stage right, to go into the House of Lords or whatever. Give them as many honours and as sinecures as they like, but they are not allowed back into the top job. I think that should be a principle in our constitutional affairs.